to Coached Soul, a podcast for a better you. Here's your host, Steve Hudgens.
Welcome back. I'm Steve. I'm a licensed professional therapist here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. With me is Julia, the co-host and a therapeutic coach. Together we talk about a variety of different subjects, or sometimes we interview other people to provide you with a different perspective about life and to help you to be a better you. To contact us, it's 918-280-08690 or CoachSoul.com. These are two ways to contact us, not on an emergency basis, but to provide feedback, questions for upcoming shows. And if you'd like to be on the show, please use the contact page on the website. We would love to hear from you. Welcome back, Julia. As always, it's great to see your smiling, bubbly face again. You know, one of the things I'd like to talk about is it's coming to the New Year's. And I know we both have probably, some great stories to tell. We had a great Christmas and things. What do you think about talking about our past and helping our listeners to kind of look at the past?
Always, Steve, my vote on that is always going to be that we learn from our past. And so I know that we've had some computer glitches in our past, thanks to technology. So it has come to my attention that even in some of my frustrations and fears associated with moving over from a new phone, old phone to a new phone, older computer to a newer computer, that I am going to have some amazing learning curves to experience moving into the future. And in the past, I'm realizing that I probably should have already done this. And it's just one of the things to look at. I think oftentimes in our, if we review some of the things that we've experienced in 2022, we may find that we procrastinate a lot, and that it would have just been simpler just to have done the thing that we were afraid of, or done the thing that that we were resisting. So yeah, I'm all about looking at it.
It's important to kind of look at things from the past. We look at our historical situations, and that's the reason why we have reminders. And what I find so fascinating, because I lived in Japan for 3 years, I've been to England for a month and France for a week, and got to travel and be able to see a lot of different things. I enjoyed things like the Louvre in Paris and the British Museum in London, and variety of different things. And so what I find interesting is that these other countries, they don't erase their history. In fact, I remember going into Westminster Abbey, and here's all these statues of people in the past that influenced their history. And you look at the United States, and we're so destructive of our past that we tear down monuments because of a distaste. Like Grant, we want to tear down his monument because of what it reminds us. But I think the good, bad, and the ugly are good reminders of what not to do going in the future. You look at Germany, it was a dark history for them, and the Nazis and what they did in the concentration camps. They didn't bulldoze any of those down. They're there for history. They're there for a purpose, as a reminder of not letting tyrannical situations get the best of us. What do you think that we can learn from our past experiences, such as history or even our own lives?
Well, I think that when we're looking at our history, because I tend to have a belief system that says that in order for me to experience without, I need to experience within. And so if I want to alter my future, then I've got to look at how I've led my life in my past. If I want to take control and even surrender might even be a better word, to healthier, happier, more content outcomes moving forward, then I'm going to need to go back and review what's going on inside. And if I have and I'm big on making sure that I don't expect others to do what I do. I invite others to do, but I don't need to expect them to follow along with me. However, I think that there is something to be said that if I want to live in a world that is similar to what I want to experience in my life, then I've got to make those changes internally first, and then invite others to be a part of those changes externally. And so our histories kind of begin to commingle as we do a lot of that inner work. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, it does. And as a faith-based person, when I think about looking at the past, one part of the scriptures it talks about to remember the past so that we can learn from others' mistakes. And when we think about that, that's important. But there's another scripture that says, we put your hand on the plow, don't look backwards, meaning that we need to keep looking forward. That's why, there's that expression, the rear view mirror in our car is smaller than that big windshield. And so that we can have a glimpse of the past, but also being able to realize there is a future that's ahead of us. And when I think about looking at our past, I think there is a way to bring awareness out to where that we don't catastrophize our thoughts in thinking like Chicken Little, the sky is falling in because of my past. I can't get anywhere in the future. I think that when you deal with the past, it's, we often say, well, we're failing or whatever, but I like to think of the past as a learning experience.
Well, and there's a whole dynamic around that as well. It's just realizing that we don't really fail. We have opportunity to learn.
Right.
And then there's just also, I want to just touch a little bit about on just making sure that our listeners, because you said it a while ago, but just to reiterate that, is that when we look back at our past, that we look at it as a learning opportunity. It is not something to be sorrowful over. It is not something to become depressed over and having ruminating thoughts over. If we're going to look back at our past, it is to use it as an assessment tool on what we want to change so that we don't repeat the same behaviors that we've done before. And there is a whole psychological thought around the idea that it may not be healthy to look at the past at all. There is that voice that's out there, and I'm not talking about a historical situation, but more of the internal dialogue that's going on in ourselves that can kind of keep us held in place. And I know I keep wanting to use my hands because I'm a hand talker, and I know our viewers can't see that. But wanting the idea that when we look at our past, that it's from a holistic standpoint and a place of non-judgment, so that we can actually in a sense, learn to love what is and what was there so that we can hold a healthier spaces in our future for those things. So
totally agree, because I believe that we need to have self-compassion. Instead of rather criticizing ourselves when something doesn't go as according to our plan, we need to look at being able to have some compassion and not get into the self-criticism of, oh my gosh, the shoulda, woulda, coulda, had if only.
Celebration, compassion, yes. And celebration. We are human beings, and it is, I think that just taking the moment to celebrate some of the things that we've overcome is it's just so valuable and important. What are some of the things that you celebrated and that you can celebrate in 2022? Because I know you have.
I think the biggest piece that both of us together could celebrate is that you and I are co-authors and becoming the #1 international best-selling author in the book called Align, an anthology about how we've been disaligned because of life's happenings, but we found ourselves aligning ourselves again, but in a better position.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's a positive aspect, is the highlight of 2022 for me. I got to thinking too that we can even go back further in our childhood memory. And one of the best memories I have is my grandfather. And I kind of want to dedicate this to my granddad because of what he's done. And what I mean is that I remember him. He only had a 3rd grade education. He grew up on a cotton farm in West Texas called Muleshoe, Texas. And I just remember a lot of his stories, but one of the things that I remember is always going fishing with him.
Aww.
And I remember throwing my rod out to do some trout fishing, and I bopped myself in the head with a sinker on the line. And my granddad was consoling me because I was about 6 or 7 years old when I did this. And I for some reason, I just remember that. But fishing with my grandfather was the best highlight of my life. And he was a very godly man, and something I want to mentor to my own grandson, of how good of a grandfather he was to me, helped me to be a grandfather to my 3-year-old grandson and 3-year-old granddaughter. What about you? What are some things that you could celebrate for 2022?
Oh my gosh. Well, let's see. I took back my maiden name. My husband's been passed away for 8 years, and I just woke up one day and said, you know what? It's time to go in and do some inner work and external work with that maiden name. And so I started the process and got my name changed back and to Caton. And as you can still, I think it's on Zoom, it still says Parks. I don't know why it keeps going back to that, but just that celebrating the idea that we're never too old to make changes on a generational scale. And so one of the life goals that I have is, when I pass on, and it will eventually happen to each of us, that should I not get married again, that I leave this earth with really positive connections to the last name Caton. And that hasn't always been the case in my past in growing up. But I do want to touch on this one thing, because you mentioned grandfather. My grandpa, which you called my papa, he was a Caton. It was my dad's dad. He also taught me a really valuable lesson. I had just started driving and learning how to back up my car at about 13, 14 years old. In Arkansas, you could drive really young. And I was trying to back up my car that my dad had given to me for Christmas for $1, and trying to park it underneath the carport, and no one was home, and I backed it up into the big supportive post that held up the corner of the carport and knocked it out enough to where it was like halfway off of its base. My grandmother, my nanny, just knew I was going to be roasting that night. She expected him to hit the ceiling. He was an iron worker. He came in hot and tired. What was interesting is he came in, took his boots off, went and got a glass of iced tea, said, "Come on, Julia, let's go have a talk." We go sit on the front porch, and we're looking out at the horses in the pasture, okay, across the street. And he's silent for just a minute. That's, it's the longest minute, because I know I'm probably fixing to be grounded forever. And he literally just says, yep, looks like we got a post to fix. Let's go get the tools to do it. And that was all he said. In that moment, he taught me that any problem, any situation, any circumstance that I am going to confront in my life, it isn't about the lesson that I'm going to learn necessarily. It's not going to be necessarily the challenges that I'm going to face. It is the repair work. It is how we choose to do the repair. And so when I look at 2022, I look at all the opportunities of repair that I can celebrate. It's taking back the last name. It's facing a fear of writing two international best-selling authored books. It is about our podcast here, and you invited me to be a co-host. It is about being able to nurture two minors of my boyfriend and the relationship that we're in, and show them that there is a different way to do life while they're facing some crisis going on in their lives. It is a time of celebration. And does that make 2022 the easiest thing I've experienced? Heckers, no. Flat out, no. But was it worth living? Absolutely. And it encourages me to take on some of those things that I can't wait to unfold, that want to be addressed and developed in 23. So there.
It's great to even talk about the past sometimes, because we could get so down on ourselves about our past. When I think about the 2022 year for me, in reflection, there has been a tremendous amount of good and positive, and the negative as well. And so when I think about the 2022, I think it's a year for me of challenging experiences again. My health situation, out of the blue, 3 different types of bacteria attacked me. I don't know what happened. The doctors don't even know what happened. It disaligned me, and that's what I wrote in that book about how being realigned again helped me to see things in a different perspective of a different world.
Yes.
To this day, I still cannot shake the feeling of seeing or hearing the code, 12 nurses in my room, and I just go black. And that's all I remember. And I wake up 3 hours later. And so it's a tremendous impact on me of a reminder of how short life is. Do we want to hold on to the past? Sure. I prefer holding on to the good, positive memories. Not to say that the negative can help me to learn and improve on who I am. But I think when we focus on the positive aspects of our life, how much more is it that helps our attitude to be positive, to be more forgiving, to be more loving to those that are around us, if we look at the past as just a learning experience? I was talking to a client the other day, and I said, what do you get by winning all the time? We don't get anything. We don't know how to learn. We don't know where our weaknesses are. We don't know where our strengths are. Because if we continue to win, what does that teach us?
Well, and there is plenty of research out there, and that will validate the fact that we actually need challenges. We need those. We won't grow when we're stagnant in life. We are beings that were designed to overcome. In fact, we revel in it, and our brain activity increases, our ability to have longer term memories, our bodies being healthy. I mean, let's just take exercise alone, okay? We used to be told that you needed to go to the gym for hours and hours on time. You need to push it, okay, that kind of thing. They now know that if you go in and you slowly, okay, face the challenge of breaking down those tissues, okay, you end up with less injury, and you also end up with longer term fitness physically. But it's still, whether you're doing it quickly and at more risk for injury, or you're doing it slowly over a period of time and repetitive discipline of going to the gym or doing your workouts at home, that you are still stretching and you are still tearing down fibers. And And in order for those muscle masses to be able to grow and bulk up and you become more physically fit and toned, then a person still has to do the work. Well, that's really all challenge is that it's us facing on a daily basis that mental workout or the physical or the spiritual or the emotional workouts that at the end is designed to help us increase and become more fit in that area.
I like William Wordsworth. He was a English romantic poet because, I'm a romantic at heart. That's just who I am. I've written poetry. In fact, some of it has been published in the Library of Congress and some of the books there. And this is my younger years. But when I think about William Wordsworth and what he said life is divided into three terms: that which was, which is, and which will be. Let us learn from the past to profit by the present, and from the present to live better in the future. And those are some great words of wisdom there, being able to take our past and live in the present. And one of the things that I think about living in the present from our past is not to get stuck. And I think a lot of times we get stuck in our past or the woulda, shoulda, coulda, had, if only. And being stuck of regrets of opportunity. I got a funny story for this one. I lived in Misawa, Japan during my high school years, my freshman, sophomore, junior year. And I'm just a skinny toothpick of a guy, and just not so much of a confidence level, because when you see a hot chick, I mean, oh my gosh, you get so nervous as a guy and you don't know what to do. And Gail was one of these women that I really, really liked in high school. And I never got the nerve to ask her out. And so I wondered, what would it be like if we would have dated? Now, I've dated other girls during high school, but I didn't date as much in Japan. It was on base, and of course, you have to be careful about dating, because word gets around whether you're a player, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you can do it today too, but high schools here are like over 800 people or more, and I'm like, holy cow. I moved during my senior year, and I graduated from Midwest City High School here in Midwest City, Oklahoma. And there was over 800 people for seniors. And mind you, I'm coming from Japan where we were only like 20 in my class of seniors. So during my, sophomore, junior year, I really liked Gail, grown to know her a lot. And 20 years later, we reconnect on Facebook. We got to talking, and I called her and we had a great conversation, reminiscing about our past. And I said, Gail, I've got a question for you. I said, I'm sorry it took me 20 something years to ask this, but I'm just curious. If I would have asked you out on a date or go steady with me in high school, would you have? She says, what took so long?
Oh,
but she's married, and so we can't move forward. But it was just a fun dynamic of how we can miss opportunities, but there's no regrets, because I look at, yes, this is a lesson learned for me, that you take an opportunity. Now that I have the self-confidence and I have the demeanor of who I am as a person, I love life. Mm-hmm. And I want to take opportunities. And one of these opportunities is going to a doctoral school right now. And,
yes.
And I'm halfway through my program. I start beginning to write my dissertation next year. I'm excited about getting into that dissertation. Anything you want to share about something funny that happened to you in the past that you're like, okay, a missed opportunity and got to come back again?
Yeah, at the moment, nothing is coming to my brain, but that's okay. This year was a celebration of also finishing with my master's degree in human relations, and the major in clinical mental health, and starting my heart center therapeutic coaching business, and just getting to meet some amazing individuals, and just the celebration of life. And so I'm just going to be honest with you. I can't wait for our next episode when we can talk about 2023 and just some of the topics that we're going to, kind of bring up during that podcast. So just thank you, Steve, for you. Thank you for this opportunity. It has been such a joy to be able to work with you on this podcast and other ventures in 2022. And I look forward to our future.
Oh, no doubt. I definitely look forward to our future, and definitely 2022 has been a blessing because you have enhanced this podcast in being able to provide some great knowledge and feedback. I know I've gotten some great feedback from a lot of our listeners, and we thank you and appreciate our comments.
Yes.
We appreciate you joining us for 2022, and we're looking forward to more to 2023. Stay tuned, because next podcast going into the new year, why are New Year's resolutions so stupid?
Love it.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Bye, guys.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope to have you back next week. Until then, be safe and be kind.